What's up, Metalheads? Welcome to Volume 6 of Metal's Best by Metal's Best. It's been a long time. What's it been, like 2 months? Holy shit. But, you know, with the Metal Inquisition doing that every week, I actually get stressed out and pressured to get those out by the Monday. And I really try to get them up as early as I can so that everybody has a chance to see it, because I forget sometimes that Monday morning here or maybe Monday evening other places. So I've done good so far. Out of 13 episodes, I've only had to put one up a day late. So I think it's pretty good so far. But anyway, I got a lot of videos that kind of been backlogged and been getting a few in. I've got a few more people that have committed to do one. Some really hoping will come through. But I will tell you that I got a wild hair to get these going and keep these moving along with the Metal Inquisition. So you'll see this one, and then hopefully within the next couple weeks, you'll see another one. So there are some people that have sent me videos quite a while ago. And so if you're looking for your video on here and it's not on this one, I promise you it'll be on the next one. Now, I will tell you there are a couple of videos that I got over the course of the time that I've been doing this that are close to 30 minutes long. 20 to 30 minutes. I really am against editing anything that you send me. I really want to just give it, put it out as is, fade in, fade out, whatever. I do that, but I don't really cut out any of the content. I want it to be raw. I want it to be just what people say and how they feel. And so I really have a hard time doing that with these videos. And so I don't know how I'm going to use those yet. I may just, each Metal's Best may get one of those long videos on it. I don't know. But this one is going to be extra long because of a few reasons. One, because at the end of this video, I'm going to do my normal take on a different era of my metal journey. This time is going to be about my introduction into death metal. And so that could get a little lengthy, but I'm going to try and keep it short. And then also, I had, over the last month or so, I've gotten videos from every member of Spinopsychosis, their PR, which is also the singer and guitarist's girlfriend. And then they sent me a video from their little boy, Cheryl Hall's little boy, Aaron. And he's the youngest metalhead that I've had on any of my episodes of Metal's Best. And this kid he's working towards being a real metalhead and getting really versed. I mean, he's already really well versed in different things in different areas of metal. So his parents are definitely teaching him well. But that takes quite a bit of time. But I wanted to put them all together since they were all in the same band. So that's what you'll see first. If you get to the end and you see me and you want to skip it, cool. Don't be frightened by the length. There are a lot of really cool videos, and a lot of them are really short. There's a lot of really cool people in here, between fans and collectors and band members, that it's just something you can't miss. So right now, I just want you to sit back, relax, and check this shit out.
Hi John, it's Chris, or Spawn from Spinopsychosis. Right, I'm doing this video again for you because I now have my CDs and vinyl out of storage, so I can do it properly. Okay, so my earliest experience with rock music was family members around me when I was a child, listening to various bands. Some good ones, like, say, The Clash, David Bowie, and some terrible ones like Dire Straits. But anyway, the first two bands I was made aware of very early on was Guns N' Roses. There's the Appetite for Destruction CD. Now, I borrowed from my dad a cassette, which I now know was made up of the best tracks from both Use Your Illusion albums. So I used to listen to that all the bloody time in the car, on my Walkman. And the other band musician that really got me into rock was Meatloaf, Bat of Hell. I used to sit in the back seat of my dad's car. We used to have the tape of that on the single on cassette, and I used to sing along to that. And when it got to the part of the song where it's him, the narrative of him on the bike and driving around and then crashing, I used to sit on the back seat like miming along to that and mimicking it. So those were my earliest memories as a child, but I wasn't fully um, into the music as an individual. That came much later on when I kind of started discovering it for myself. I was a teenager, and like a lot of people, I guess my first experience with it was MTV2 when MTV2 played heavy music. And the first two videos I saw on that, which made me go, I want to know about those bands. One was Korn, and it was the Freak on the Leash video. And I saw that, and I was like, this is what I've been missing, because I didn't really get, I wasn't into popular music, I didn't relate to it, so I just related to that, and that was the thing. So that was at the time the first modern metal band I got into. But because of my childhood and knowing that there was all this history of rock music and heavy music, I went backwards from there. And the second video I saw on MTV2 that day, which made me go, who is that? Was Enter Sandman by Metallica. And that started my massive love of Metallica. And I know that my bandmate Chris has said about how he loves Megadeth and I love Metallica, and we kind of take the piss out of each other. But in truth, I do like both bands. But for me as an individual, I just really related to Metallica. So after seeing In Sandman, I went out and I bought, obviously, the Black Album. And then bought all the back catalogue. And anything they've done since, the only thing I don't have that was a main release would be Lulu, because even I was like, don't see the point in that one. But generally speaking, I've bought every Metallica album that was a general release. I know you've got a wealth of stuff I'll never know about, John, because you collect everything, but Metallica was my big band, and they majorly influenced me as a musician. But they were also the gateway to just the wealth of other bands. And as I grew older, my taste changed slightly and became more diverse within heavy metal. So I've got just a brief selection of other CDs here of other bands that have influenced me since then. So just to be fair, and for my bandmate Chris, I do own some Megadeth. Years ago, when my band Spawn Psychosis started, when we used to go down the pub, we used to put on, so I get the name right, Symphony of Destruction and Sweating Bullets, and we used to sing on to that, and we used to kind of take the piss of Dave Mustaine a bit in a good way, because they are a cool bands. They do their thing. Metallica do theirs. So I do own some Megadeth. Old school, what I call old school kind of bands. I do like. Grab it. Do like Wasp. I mean, I loved all that kind of 80s hair metal stuff as well. I mean, I'm a big Motley Crue fan. I'm Motley Crue. I like Nikki Sixx's solo stuff as well. So there's that. I was obviously getting into music around the grunge era as well, so I do like Nirvana and Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam. It's the only album I own of Pearl Jam. I know a lot of people consider it kind of their best. One of the big things for me in music was music videos, and there are some CDs in here as well of when I was, again, a child, so I was more listening to music that other people listened to. I saw some music videos that really stuck with me, and it wasn't until many years later that I found out who the band was, who did the music and therefore the video. And Jeremy on this was a video that really stuck with me. It's a very powerful video, and it's an awesome song. So I had to get the album that is off. Also, as a kid, I saw the video for Cats in the Cradle by Ugly Kid Joe. Now, I've only got this compilation, get greatest hits, whatever you want to call it. But again, it was a video that I saw, and I loved the song, and everything about the video stuck with me. And another video at the time, not metal, but was Soul Asylum and Runaway Train. I believe that video in every country it was released that had missing persons, they adapted the video to reflect that country's missing person cases, basically, try and kind of highlight the problem. So yeah, not metal, but I still think it's awesome. Soul Asylum. And let's see. So yeah, then in my discovering bands myself, obviously, you know, the new metal era happened. So I like some Machine Head, like some Static X, some Drowning Pool, some Disturbed. I know some metalheads are like, oh, new metal, blah blah blah, shit, whatever. But you know, I like it. I'm very much the kind of person, if I relate to it, I relate to it. I like it. I'm not a big believer in your metal just because you down tune your guitars and you play really fast and heavy. But that's just my opinion. So you know, I get into the topics and the stories behind the songs, and I do actually want to hear what people sing a lot of the time. A friend of mine turned me on to Life of Agony. This is one of their more recent ones, but it wasn't this album. It was The River Runs Red that I only have on a copy, not the official one. I need to get that, and that was just again powerful and honest, and totally related to that. Wednesday 13 and Murder Dolls. They became quite a big influence on me as well, theatrics and stuff in my band. Admittedly, I got into Murder Dolls first. I then thought, Wednesday 13, well, you know, it's just Murder Dolls in it. But then I actually listened to Wednesday 13 as a solo artist, and he is equally awesome. So I do own some Wednesday 13. I'm not a big Tool fan, which for some people might be sacrilege. Just couldn't get into them. They're great musicians, I just couldn't get into them. But A Perfect Circle, I really got into A Perfect Circle. So I just relate to it more. I think Tool can be very pretentious, you know, if I can say that, but that's just me. You know there, Cheryl? Cheryl's in the background, you know, harassing me now. Where am I? Do you want them on camera? Anyway, sorry. So yeah, Perfect Circle. And gotta love it, Rob Zombie and White Zombie. Again, the theatrical side of things influenced me in the early days of Spawn. I mean, these days, you know, the industrial kind of came into it more with more industrial metal, and we're changing up some things now with our new EPs. But yeah, theatrics was a big thing for me. Up to date, I must admit, I've kind of slipped out of what's going on with metal music. Through my band playing the gigs we played, I got a little bit more into kind of underground metal industrial crossover bands. So really modern metal, I don't really know what's going on. I don't relate to a lot of the bands that come out. Kind of what I mean over here in the UK, we had the thing with the hardcore scene. Never really got into that. In terms of most recent things that I got into, I know he doesn't do it anymore, which I think's shit. But Jason Newsted, obviously Metallica, he did his own band. I know he's on many, but Newsted, and that was cool. And it is a shame that my understanding, he's decided to just pack it in because financially he was spending more money than he was making. And amongst my collection, I do have some random stuff, and Cheryl really wants me to talk about this one on camera. So, the game Guitar Hero, I think it was Guitar Hero 2, had a track on it called Who Was In Your Room Last Night, and I thought that was awesome, and I tracked down who the band was and bought the album, and in my opinion, it's kind of metal punk, just weirdness. And that is Butthole Surfers. And Cheryl really loves the fact that they are called the Butthole Surfers, and she just wants me to keep saying Butthole Surfers.
Butthole.
So, there you go. So, yeah, kind of said in my my first attempted video, I was into rock music because of my family members. Then discovered new metal. Then went back into old school metal. Massive Metallica fanboy. Not ashamed of it. I think they get too much shit than they deserve. And then kind of picked up some weird crossover stuff as I went on. It's kind of weird now. I've got my CDs out of storage and looking at my collection, seeing things and kind of going, hey, I remember why I bought that album and that was going on when. And I think that's the thing about music. You attach your life moments to it. Another thing I want to show you real quick, John, because I know you love your vinyls. I have a few vinyls. I inherited some of these after recent events in my life. First one I ever bought at Download 2007 was Metallica's Creeping Death on blue vinyl. I know you have this yourself because I think you basically have everything ever made sometimes. Other things I've got, again inherited. Dio. Motorhead. Our ex-guitarist Adam or Drag, he was into Motorhead like I'm into Metallica, and he actually met Lemmy a few times, as did his dad when his dad was 20. So there's a whole history there for him. And just grab some more interesting vinyls I've got. I've got some picture disc things. So we've got Rob Zombie, Educating Horses. Rob Zombie again. And Alice Cooper, which was 1,872 of 5,000 pressings. So I have no idea if any of these are actually worth anything or whatever. I know some of them are actually reissued, like the Rob Zombie ones, not because they're kind of more modern reissues, but yeah. So that's my video for the second attempt. I want to say, John, thank you for the support you have given me and my band. And thank you for the support you've given me recently for my track Phoenix, the charity track we've done. Hopefully we'll raise a lot of money for the Neuro Foundation in Katie's memory. But yeah, check out my band, everyone. Spawner Psychosis, www.spawnerpsychosis.com. We're an industrial punk metal band from the UK, working on a double EP that's coming out this year. And yeah, share, like, subscribe, and do the same with John's channel if you haven't already, because he is awesome. Right, so from me and Cheryl in the background, we'll see you around, John. Bye. Hi John, it's Chris.
And Cheryl.
We're here to do Cheryl's video for you on her heavy metal influences, and I'll get round to doing mine later on. So, over to you, Cheryl.
Yeah, a lot of influences. Kiss, growing up, country and western, really, for me. So it wasn't always metal. Dark wave, 80s, that kind of thing. But on the subject of metal, first one will be my first ever album, which I bought with my first wages growing up, and that was Soundgarden.
Which is technically grunge, but...
yeah, but, Chris Cornell, that kind of thing. This isn't the actual album, it was another one, but yeah, so it is Soundgarden. Also, Impulse Buys, Marduk. I actually absolutely loved this artwork on the album here, so I bought this Plague Angel album from Marduk because of the artwork, and absolutely loved it. I mean, if you have a look at the back as well, it's beautiful. You can't really see now. Yeah, really, really lovely, and one of my favourite albums. I don't really play that much anymore, actually, must say. Put that in. And moving on, Cradle of Filth, it's a British band. Love this album. A lot of people don't like it because they, you know, they experimented more with the vocals and things like that. Were more of
What's the album called?
This one is an amphetamine album.
Right.
Yeah, so not a lot of people like that one. I do. Carry On. I love this. This album particularly because it's very Egyptian kind of. You put it in, you get that kind of feeling of a little bit because I'm into cultural anthropology and that's what I studied as well growing up. So that was quite a big album for me. Typo Negative. Got into them in my teens and I listened to them quite a lot in my 20s as well. Yep, mainly when I was depressed.
That really settles it, doesn't it? When I was depressed.
Yeah. Rammstein, absolutely love them. And this one, particularly this album, because of Morgenstern, which is such a beautiful song lyrically as well. So I do love this album for that one. Ellis, I love this album. It's pretty sad with Ellis. The lead singer died, Sabine, and I think they got another lead singer who also died. But this album is so beautiful. I mean, her vocals are absolutely stunning. You know, that kind of music that gives you chills down your spine. Next one, Flowing Tears. That's another female fronted one. I love them. Love this album especially. Not really into their latest stuff, but this one I always go back to now and then. Very nice. She's got a very, very deep vocal. But no, that's beautiful. This one also lyrically very beautiful. TDV, they're just the vampires. A lot of people don't like them, and they are a bit hit and miss on some of them. And this one is the best one for me. There's quite a lot of ones like Lady in Black I like, but they do get a lot of negative press because of the earlier stuff and the vocals and the recording quality and things like that. But they're actually really, really good. This one, definitely. Lordi, absolutely love Lordi, even before they were on Eurovision. Every single song of Lordi I absolutely love. So yeah, I absolutely love this one I will be buried with.
Maybe sooner rather than later.
Death Stars. A lot of people don't like them. But they're very, very good. This is my favourite album. They're more industrial. Developed the whole kind of death glam thing, but this one's the good album. Dirt and Grey, they're Japanese. This one, which was the one that I really loved the video on. I saw the video and it was obscure. I saw this video on, I think it was Scuzz, a few years back, and I absolutely loved the video. It was so creepy, weird, and yeah, ticked all the boxes for me. Not really keen on the rest of the album though. But that one song is definitely worth it. A friend got me into Powerwolf, and I must say I am a big fan. I absolutely love them. Beautiful, beautiful music, and just the way that they present themselves as well. And I absolutely love their artwork, the illustrations. I love the photography. It's just everything about it. It's just
This is
so
my one.
beautiful. That it might be your one, but my one is there and the case is broken. So
One of the few CDs I have that's not in storage.
yeah, because it's in my possession.
Actually, I got into them because of you. Because you told me about them, and yeah, I checked them out, and then saw it in HMV and bought them.
Because they're very good. This Mortis, absolutely love Mortis. This is the special one that I just got. I'm covering Chris's face, sorry. Because I love this album. It's one of my favourite Mortis albums. But also, I want to show you the artwork. I love, oh, here we go. I love his Ouroboros is a dragon. And you've got a guy fighting the dragon. I absolutely love it. But this album as well, and this vinyl is a special pink one. And it was one of 100. So I got the last one or something. It was really good. I'm so pleased. But especially because it was the Mortis gig which I went to, and Chris was playing, and that's how I met him. He was supporting. And yeah, so I've been a fan of Mortis a good few years. Also his earlier stuff, Bond, and his instrumental stuff also definitely worth looking into if you're a fan of his new stuff, especially. He's just brought out absolutely brilliant. I went to see my family in Canada recently, and I went to go and see Necronomicon, and at the gig the supporting group was Vesperia, and it's death metal, but they're very, very good, very, very good. And they also had this EP, which I absolutely loved, and In the Hall of the Mountain King, especially because I like that. It was very good. And Necronomicon, who I met in Canada, absolutely amazing.
Cat's being a dick.
Yeah, the cat's in the background, so he might come. Oh gosh, he's coming.
You summoned him.
He's summoned by Necronomicon. The guys here, really nice guys as well. This album, absolutely brilliant, and their video as well. Check it out on YouTube. You know, definitely recommend them to anyone.
Oh shit!
He's coming.
The cat's coming.
He's coming for you. This one, my son, who's 9, who has good taste, very good taste. He got me into this band. They're called Piklani, and I believe they're from Finland. But they are so good. The song Vodka, yeah,
Vodka.
absolutely brilliant. It's one of those pick me up ones, because I am a bit of a miserable, depressant git. I'm sure Chris would say that.
Because you're so goth.
Dry sarcasm, and yeah. So yeah, if I'm having one of those moments, Chris, you know to put the vodka on.
Or just walk away.
Or walk away. And lastly, I've just got into this band from Norway again. Obviously, I do like the European metal. The Goth Minister. Absolutely have fallen in love with this band. So I will be checking more of their stuff out. Happiness in Darkness, very me. But yeah, that is one of my favourites, and Chris likes them as well.
I do.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind getting my band to support them at some point.
I think they do very well together as well industrially, but these are awesome. So definitely recommend them as well. And out of all of my recommended things that have made me me, obviously I do like all the old stuff. Judas Priest, the classics. I love Alice Cooper, absolutely love him, but I just don't think there's no need to mention him, because everybody knows who they are. They're legends. So I thought I'll give you a taste of European metal. And I hope you like it, and I hope it's not too long for you. But thanks for being so patient, and thank you.
See you around, John.
See you around. Bye.
Bye.
Hi John, it's Rob, aka Chaos from Spawn of Psychosis. Just giving a quick video on how I got into metal music. So it all started from the age of sort of 10 or 11. I had always sort of like heard the odd tracks here and there, just sort of spraying out from TV. The one that mainly sort of like gave that initial spark for me to sort of like explore it more was from Rammstein. It was Ishville. So I went straight over to my uncle Russell's, and big shout out. I basically asked him just sort of like what sort of CDs you can recommend, and he just gave me this massive sort of pile of albums. I think he ended up giving me the entire collection of Machine Head. He ended up giving me all the System of a Down, Metallica, Carcass, just anything that he thought I would be interested in. So from then I just started listening, and it's stuck with me ever since. So obviously, with listening to the music, it always makes you want to play. So I noticed my dad started relearning guitar because he used to be in an old band. So I just ended up getting just one of those cheap standard guitars that you get off eBay. And from then I started learning what he was learning. It started out just as blues. And then from then on, as I was going through school, it's just sort of picked up over to bass guitar because that seemed to be in a bit more of demand. And from then it's just exploded from there. I started listening to more Korn, then I started hanging out with more friends, sort of like hanging out more, playing with them, because quite a lot of my friends were quite good, quite decent musicians. I started joining the odd sort of band here, and never really sort of gigging, but just sort of spending the time jamming, creating stuff, wrote down a few songs and things like that. And, well, I ended up getting notified by, well, it was my roommate at the time. It was Chris, so also known as Razor from Spawn of Psychosis. He said he needed a bass player, so I thought, so I'll just go on a whim, and turned out getting the place, and I've been busting out tunes ever since. All right, take care, John, and all the best.
Hi John Cruz, this is Erin, Cheryl and Chris's son. My favourite music out of all of them is Five Finger Death Punch. My favourite track is on this one, because I've got free. It is Wrecking Ball. On this one, it is.
Sorry, it's fine. Keep going.
Jekyll and Hyde.
That's it, Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde. And on my other one, which I don't have with me, it's in my car.
His car.
Is
right side of.
It's the righteous side of righteous. It's the wrong side of heaven and the righteous side of hell. My second favourite album is Powerwolf. My mum showed it last time when she may have did an accident.
What? Accident? Excuse me. And by that he means what?
It means when the cat bit you, I think.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, when the cat bit me.
So yeah,
yeah.
that's you like.
I can assure you, I am continent. Thank you.
Yeah. And on this one, it's All You Can Bleed, and that's my favourite one on this Powerwolf CD. My third one is Metallica. On this one, there is actually 2 CDs. One having 6 tracks, the other having 6. My favourite one on both of those is Moth Into the Flame, and on the other one, Spit Out the Bone. My fourth is Goth Minister. On this one, most people ignore it, but it's track 2 and 3, Welcome in Monsters.
Nice.
Fifth is Slipknot. My favourite one is Wait and Bleed. 6 is God Be Canny. My favourite one on this one, because I've got 2, is Lempo. On the other one, this one, it's got 3 albums. One which is Car Kilo. Yeah, I think Car Kilo. We've got Car Kilo, and Coven Conscious. I can't remember how to pronounce this one. And they're both from Kopikani, being supported by Nuclear Blast. My favourite one on these 2 is Vodka and Gods in Fire. And the last one, which is my favourite one out of all of them, is Monocycosis Ministry of Transition. My favourite one on this one is Marda, and if we could put it on at the end.
You want to put it on at the end? Yeah. Okay. See what we can do.
Any message for John?
I like heavy metal, and that's it.
Sounds good.
See you, John.
Everybody's got something to say, but not everyone will speak their mind. Everybody's got something to say, but not everyone will be honest. Everybody's got something to say, but not everyone has grown a spine. Everybody's got something to say, but not everyone chooses free will. I won't ever be lying down.
Hey everyone, Razor here, guitarist, synth player, songwriter, effects maker, and other stuff for Spinal Psychosis, too many stuff. Doing a video here for John Cruz. I believe our guys already done their video, so about time I done mine. It's just going over our influences really, what's inspired me to make music and do what I do today. I absolutely love it. What bands inspired me, all that stuff. So I guess the best thing to do is really just go from the beginning. I was a big music fan, but not so much heavy metal at first. It's just where it was on the radio when I was about 11, 12 years old. I didn't discover metal till I was about 15, 14, when I first heard Korn. Actually, I think one of the first metal songs, well, sort of metal songs, new metal, was Freak and Unleashed by Korn. It was on MTV at the time, back when MTV actually stood for music, not media, and become the abomination it is today. Korn, Freak and Unleashed, that song blew me away. I actually loved it. It was heavy. I was like, oh, this is new. What is this? So, one of the first bands I probably got into, admittedly, was actually Korn. First band I saw live. And one of the first records I actually bought here was Korn, the self-titled album, the first album, I actually fell in love with this. It was incredibly dark, it's heavy, it was just raw, it was just something else. I never listened to it before. Compared to like commercial music, and it was just, you know, this was something completely different, and I loved every second. It was very emotional, very dark at the end. You know, the song "Daddy." It's yeah. But it's really driving. It's John Davis influenced a lot of people, along with other band members. But yeah, that's cool, and it's fantastic. I still love him. The later stuff is, you know, it's okay. It's yeah, it's all right. Some is better than others. But going to some other bands that influenced me, I mean, I have to go with next for my favourite band of all time. I have to go with Nine Inch Nails. Trent Reznor, yeah, I'm one of them people that's just, I actually love the bloke. He's a genius. I love all the stuff he's released. If there's one album I could choose ever to be my thing, you know, if I was stuck on an island, I had to choose one album, it would have to be The Downward Spiral. This album is an absolute masterpiece. I've got the deluxe album here with the bonus CD, so it's 2 CDs here. Yeah, just start to finish, I never get bored of this album. I've been listening to it at least once a week for the last 8-10 years. Yeah, it's brilliant. If you haven't heard the new EP, not the actual events, go check it out, because it's brilliant. Going on to another influence, I know Chris Dredge goes on about being a massive Metallica fan. And the thing for me, I'm a massive Megadeth fan, so there's always been this little feud between the two of us. You know, nothing serious, just as a little joke. You know, he goes on about why he thinks for some reason Metallica are better. Obviously not. For me, I go on about why Megadeth are better. You know, Dave Mustaine is a brilliant guitarist, brilliant songwriter, and I just think, to me, Megadeth has always just been the stronger band in terms of songwriting, stuck to the core. I mean, they've gone in different directions. Same with Metallica, and Metallica released Load and Reload. Same with Megadeth released Risk and Cryptic Writings. They went in their different directions, and yeah. But they've both gone back to the core sounds. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of the latest Metallica albums. It's a bit boring, and, yeah. But listen to Megadeth's latest recording, Dystopia. Actually blown away by it. We've got this here. Fantastic album, definitely one of the best albums to date. Best album of all time, apart from, you know, Countdown to Extinction and Rust in Peace and a few others. But it's such a heavy record. It's a lot of fun to listen to. Highly recommend it if you've not heard it. What else have we got? Yeah, I've got a bunch of CDs here. I need to sort of talk through. I'll try and not waste too much time with it. When people speak of Sponsor Coast being an industrial band, I do a lot of synth playing for it, and I try and make it, you know, sort of electronic sound, get it to what it is today. And a couple of influences, you know, apart from Nine Inch Nails, when a lot of people think of industrial music, they think of Marilyn Manson, Rammstein, and all these other sort of bands. For me, it was sort of the earlier influences of industrial music. For example, Killing Joke. To me, Killing Joke are the sort of pioneers of industrial metal. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't have as much music or industrial music as we would today. I've got Killing Joke's first album here, self-titled. Came out in the early 80s. This was the first record at that time, I believe, was sort of had harsher guitars with harsher synths rather than this sort of like beautiful electro sound compared to, you know, like Gary Newman and the earlier artists, you know, like Kraftwerk. This is where they really sort of just went a bit sort of kind of heavier, that more distorted tone. But I mean, the class is a post-punk band, really, but there's definitely some industrial feelings there. Another band, industrial kind of class, is Godflesh. My favourite album here, Pure by Godflesh. A lot of people go with Street Cleaner, but I think this, to me, just speaks to me a bit more. Godflesh just sort of invented the 7-string sound a little bit before Korn. I think Korn was what made it popular. But when they released Street Cleaner with Godflesh, it was just actually mind blowing. And it's just that sort of a lot of despair, just that angst, the heavy drums, heavy guitars, really distorted vocals that really just captured me. I just actually love it. And I mean, Killing Joke and Godflesh aren't as well known today compared to other bands, say like Rammstein, Manson, Rob Zombie, and all that. So if you love your industrial music, not so much like Comic Quest now, but you just like it with a lot of guitars, I highly recommend Killing Joke and Godflesh. You'll not be disappointed. Other influences, I love my heavy music, like really heavy music. I grew up listening to death metal, particularly bands like Cannibal Corpse, Death, Deicide, Obituary, Dying Fetus, and all that. I always went for heavier is better. And I got tired of listening to bands where they'll release a sort of mediocre album, oh, we're heavy in that, and then it wasn't all that. But when I first heard death metal, I was just blown away. One band that really caught my eye was a band called Akakoki. Based near enough in London, their music's they're considered a black end death metal band, combining elements of black metal and death metal together, and it blows your face off listening to that record. Another album of mine that's actually one of my favourites of all time, Pantera, Great Southern Trendkill. I think a lot of people, if they chose their favourite Pantera album, they would probably go for Cowboys from Hell, or Vulgar Display of Power. Great Southern Trendkill for me was, I just prefer the riffs and I prefer the overall production. It's a lot more intense. And it's just overall great record. Not that the other records are bad. This is just my favourite one. Now to go into some of my other influences, I don't just listen to metal, I listen to all sorts of music. I'll share a few more CDs here, but to me, I could just spend all day just talking about my influences and that, but I'll go through a couple more CDs here. I'm a massive fan of electronic music, hence being a synth player. I love synths, I love the whole sound of it. That's ranging from liquid drum and bass to underground dubstep, just to techno and all that. So speaking earlier of Kraftwerk, one of my favourite Kraftwerk albums, Trans Europe Express, just itself, just speechless, great album. I don't need to say much about this. If you don't know Kraftwerk, check out the albums. And another great influence for me is Aphex Twin. Just the use of the sonic bass sounds. It's not your typical dance music or anything like that. It works a lot with ambient music. A lot of disjointed sounds, and I highly recommend. At the moment, it's his latest album, Syro. Really weird song titles, but yeah, it's just utterly brilliant. Really, really good electronic music. Very intelligent. Completely unpredictable. It's a lot of fun to listen to. And my last artist here, I'm going to have to go with Ulver, Teachings in Silence. This is just, again, just lots of noise, lots of ambient sounds mixed with pianos and all sorts of stuff. Just lots of stuff going on in this, but it's quite subtle at the same time. Just again, I'll just go on all day about my influences, but yeah, it's there's a lot of death metal, black metal, heavy metal, thrash metal, electronic, hip hop influences that we just combine in Spawn Psychosis. My one rule in Spawn Psychosis is that there are no rules. Whatever fits works. Whatever we feel doing at the time, we'll just chuck in. We're still as strong as ever, without Adam in the band. We're still going strong. Or should I call him Drag? But yeah, we're still going on, so who knows what type of music we'll be creating in a couple of years' time, 5 years, 10 times time, who knows. But yeah, there are my influences. I hope I haven't bored you too much, but I'm going to sit here and carry on drinking. Oh, good stuff. And I'll see you on the road at some point soon, guys. Take care. Bye.
Hi guys and girls, I've been asked to do a small video by John about my most influential or my favourite album and how it's had an influence on my life and whatsoever. Pretty much I've been a metalhead as long as I can remember. Favourite band, although they're very controversial at the moment, is Slipknot. And as far as my favourite album of all time, I'd have to go with Ice Turf's album, Night of the Storm Rider. It's had a huge role in my life. My oldest brother, who I no longer have contact with because he's in prison, he got me onto that album a few years ago, and it has helped me through a lot of hard times. And when I put it on to this day, it just reminds me of the good times that him and I have had together. Thanks for the opportunity to do this, John, and I'll catch you all next time.
Now, los, Tem. Sag, du musst dich entscheiden. So, what's the best metal album of all time?
I don't fucking know. It's just like, no.
This?
What?
This?
I don't know. It's difficult because there's so many and so different influences.
For you?
Yeah. But maybe, I can't really say. There's so many.
What was the most impressive one?
I don't know. I just, now to my mind comes the first Born in My Blood.
Oh, that was impressive, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like so fucking forward.
The energy was
so
great.
It was, yeah. So much energy.
Okay.
Like thrashing forward, yeah. So now it's your turn.
Yeah.
What was your
I break down the question. And I made a new question. And what would be the album if I had to make a decision and I have to decide for one album for the rest of my life? And it would be Gamma Ray Somewhere Out in Space. Impressive guitar work, impressive drumming, impressive vocals. Everything is just so awesome. And you find hard stuff, aggressive stuff, you find melodic stuff, you find great harmonies. Everything is in that Gamma Ray album. I don't have it with me all the time, I'm sorry. But I should have. I should have.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
So that's it. Perfect answers from everybody.
Yeah, that's probably
15 points for
Okay,
Xperia.
Alright, John, you wanted me to make a video of some of my most influential albums that have inspired me over the years, my music playing and writing. This would be, in the top 10, top 15. Judas Priest, Scream for Vengeance, phenomenal album. Twin Guitar Attack, Rob Halford on vocals. Doesn't get much more metal than Judas Priest. And moving along to Iron Maiden, what's more metal than Iron Maiden? Killer's album, which, second album. It's like a finely tuned machine with Di'Anno singing and just, amazing. Twin Guitar Attack again with very unique vocals. And look at the album cover. Who wouldn't like this as a kid? Next, we move on to Ozzy Osbourne, Diary of a Madman, which, I think is Randy Rhoads' best work with Ozzy. This album is, just flowing straight through. Great album, amazing guitar playing, one of my favorite guitar players. And once again, a unique vocalist that just, nobody sounds like Ozzy. Nobody. Next would probably be Def Leppard, High and Dry. Great album, twin guitar attack, very unique voice. I mean, this by far my favorite Def Leppard album. I mean, it's just very raw and just like pure rock and roll, heavy metal kind of feel. You don't really get much better than that rock and roll feel until, maybe later on with Guns N' Roses or something, Appetite for Destruction. But this is, back in the day in the 80s where, just pure rock and roll metal. Would probably be, one of the albums that got me into some real heavier stuff. Metallica's Kill 'Em All, their debut album, and just amazing real raw heavy metal sound to it. Twin guitars, the rhythm guitar is amazing on this, and the vocals is so raw and forceful, and if you've ever listened to this album, you've never forgotten it. It's fantastic. This album comes a little later on, and my influences, Dave Mustaine left Metallica to create Megadeth, so you got to throw some Megadeth in there as influence, and this is by far their best album, I think. I mean, it's just all the way straight through, song after song is like the best work I think they've ever done. And, it just really inspires you to write your best work. I don't know how long it took them to write this thing, but it's just a masterpiece. And now we're getting into a little more obscure. I don't know if Testament's obscure to some of you people, but to some of them it is. This is The New Order, probably my favorite Testament album ever made, and once again, twin guitars, lead guitarist Skolnick is just phenomenal guitar player. And everything on this album is amazing. The vocals, unique vocals. I mean, they're pretty heavy vocals. It's a heavy album, but it's very worth taking a listen to. And now we're moving into a little more obscure, maybe, Flotsam and Jetsam to some of you people. No Place for Disgrace is the album, and this is just, little heavier, little strange kind of feeling to this album, but the vocals very unique again, and just, I mean, giving this album a listen, you won't be disappointed. It, might be a little off the cuff, but it's definitely a great album to hear. And probably my most obscure album that I'm going to list in this 10 to 15 album list would be Icon, their self-titled debut, and it is one of the best albums I've ever listened to, and grew up listening to this. Most people have never heard of this band. I think they're from Phoenix, Arizona, and, just amazing voice, twin guitars, again, with great leads. You will not be disappointed if you come across this and listen to it. And now for Wasp, it's self-titled. I mean, you can't have metal without Blackie Lawless. I mean, this guy is the theatrical wizard of metal, later days. He ain't no Alice Cooper, but he's up there, with his theatrics. And Wasp definitely will leave a lasting memory on you if you're a kid and growing up and watching their videos on MTV or, listening to the music. It's one that you do not forget the voice. And this one, Queensryche, The Warning, would probably be up there. I used to sneak down into my brother's basement and listen to this record when they weren't home. And, my favorite songs on this, it's just, nonstop all the way through. Amazing vocals, great twin guitar attack, great drummer. I mean, all around. I mean, even the bass player is good. It's just, freaking amazing album. And it definitely leaves a lasting impression on you that you won't forget. And if you couldn't tell, I'm showing Queensryche again, so they're my favorite band. And this is probably the best album of my choice out of anything I've ever heard. It's a concept album, storytelling, and it's just like, this is probably my favorite album of all time. Nothing tops this album to me. I mean, the vocals, the twin guitar, the leads, the storyline, everything, the vocals, the writing, it's just, nothing is even close to this in my mind if you want to hear the best album of all time ever made.
Hey guys, I'm Fabian from the Swiss heavy thrash metal band Trödelander. And if I should pick one album that influenced me the most, I would say it's Slipknot's Volume 3. Of course, albums from Metallica are also my favorites, like Death Magnetic, Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning. In my opinion, Saint Anger too. But Volume 3 is one album that gave me the desire to push me to a new level in playing drums when I was 12. Another band that influenced me also was Lamb of God. From this band, I would say it's the album Wrath. It's so powerful and grooving, it's just amazing. I love Chris Adler's style. And the third album that I have to name here is The Blackening from Machine Head, because there are so many emotions in just one song. From soft till in your face, higher level techniques. In my opinion, it's a masterpiece too. So yeah, these were my influences and favorite album. I hope you enjoyed it and had a lot of fun with the next guys with their great story.
Hey, what's up, John? This is Scott from Michigan. I just wanted to throw in my opinions for your video series. There are a lot I could have picked that everyone has picked. Merciful Fate, early Metallica, stuff like that. I thought I'd try to throw in a couple that maybe haven't been talked about so much. So my first one is Nuclear Assault, Handle with Care. I heard these guys on a college radio show. It was an interview and a bunch of songs. I taped it and listened to it a million times. I wish I still had the tape, but of course I don't. But this was the first album I bought from them. It hasn't held up particularly well, but it's a really fun, fast thrash album. At the time, it was the first album I got that no one had ever heard of, so I felt kind of underground. Obviously, they're not that underground if you can buy them in the mall, but it felt like it to me, and it's always been a really special album for me. Even though it might not be that great by today's standards, I still love it for nostalgia. Next one I'm going to pick is Hypocrisy, the Fourth Dimension. I'd been into some death metal here and there before that, but I was really mourning the loss of thrash until I heard Apocalypse, the opening track, on some compilation somewhere. And just the keyboards coming in and then followed by that first really slow, crushing riff, I was just hooked. I know a lot of people, including you, like the earlier stuff better, but for me, this started my favorite era of the band, which is like this through the self-titled. So many great songs. What I liked about it was it's brutal, but it's still melodic, and the songs are still memorable. Reborn, another one of my favorites. The title track is awesome. Yeah, this one I've loved since it came out, and that was 94. So, the last one is a bit of a rarity. Winterland, Welcome My Last Chapter. I went to a little record store in Chicago called Nightfall. Just a little hole in the wall, just one little room. It's long gone by now. But I went in one time, and this guy was playing something on the boombox. And I was like, what the hell is this? It sounds like Dissection, but it's not. And so I asked him, and he's like, oh yeah, this is Winterland. You got it? And he goes, yeah, I got it. So I bought it right away. I like to tell people it's the best Dissection album that Dissection didn't do. Just really a killer Black Death album, and I guess it's worth quite a bit of money now. I heard these guys were going to get back together, but I don't think they ever did. Just one of those one and done bands, but highly recommend it if nobody's heard it. All right, man. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Hello Metalhead, my name is Serge, I am from Ukraine and play in technical thrash band Bastion. Invasion! I love music and I love my collection. Hey, ugly dude, please kiss me! My favorite band is Raven. Hello John Halaker! Hello Serge! No, your favorite band is Atheist. Hello Kelly!
Hi, it's Kelly from Atheist. My boy Serge.
My other favorite band is Dark Angel, Watchtower, Destruction, Hello, Mr. Andrea Grida, Anthrax, Iron Maiden, Exciter, and Mighty King Diamond. Thank you, John Cruz, for your great videos about metal. Sorry for my bad English. Bye.
Time to hit the road. Another time, another gig, again we will explode. Hotel rooms and motorways, murdered in your bed. Never stop, never quit, we are Motorhead. Adrenaline starts to flow, rushing all around, acting like a maniac.
Hey everybody, it's Tim here, always thrashing. For my influences, what got me into heavy metal and what really started me off on my journey, as it will, started with the new wave of British heavy metal. You know, I was really heavily into, always into Sabbath, but, you know, jumping into Priest and a Maiden, you know, getting into all of these kind of bands in the late 70s, early 80s, really, you know, introduced me to a sound that I loved, and it just progressed from there, getting into the 80s, of course, with Metallica, you know, Exodus, Megadeth, Slayer, Testament, you know, the list goes on and on. But I really do have to say, in the 80s, you know, even with all the hair bands and, you know, the LA sound scene and everything that was going on at the time, there was a lot out there for you. The 80s was just like a plethora of genres of music and styles, and just so much of it. A lot of garbage out there too. You know, there's always the wannabes. There was always the good guys, you know, the leaders, and then the followers. But, you know, it was just, you know, for the music fan, it was just an awesome time to be into hard rock and metal was the 80s. And, you know, it was constantly changing all the time. And I was growing with it, you know, I was a big Motley Crue fan, you know, early 80s, right from the, you know, the first days. And, you know, I just progressed from there, and I heard Metallica, and it was like, you know, who are these guys? And, you know, this is great. This is new. This is something different. And, you know, it just progressed from there, as other bands I've already mentioned to you. But I have to say that what really kind of stood out for me and kind of boils to the top, if you want to talk about it from those days, that really just I keep going back to, you know, these years now, my go-to list of stuff to listen to. A couple of albums that I just always love to go back and listen to is Exodus, Bonded by Blood. That is just an album that when I first heard that, when it first came out, it was just like, this is different, this is new, this is something else, you know. Bailoff's vocals were just, you know, it was such a great combination of their artistry. What they did when they put that album out was pioneering to me, and I still love that album to this day. I still go back and listen to it. I get that same kind of feeling from it that I did when I first heard it. And another album that, you know, I'm sure this is on quite a few people's lists is Slayer's Rain and Blood. You know, Haunting the Chapel, some people will say that's, you know, the better album over Rain and Blood. It goes back and forth amongst Slayer fans between that, you know, and Rain and Blood. But for me, Rain and Blood was the album from beginning to end. It's like a little over 30 minutes, maybe 35 minutes or so. And it's just beginning to end that's the way you have to listen to it. You have to listen to that album from track 1, you know, to track 9 or whatever it is. All the way through. It's just that's the way I like to listen to it. I don't piecemeal it. I put it on and listen to it in its order. And that is definitely and always a go-to album, a great driving album when I'm, you know, out on the road or I've got to take a road trip or something like that. I love to pop that in because it's just it just gets the blood flowing. But you know, and then going in from that, you know, going in from say from Motley Crue to these kind of bands and jumping up into like, you know, Sepultura was just, you know, just another one there. It's like these bands were sort of like the gateway into the heavy, thrashy, speed metal, nastier side of what I was listening to in the early 80s. You know, again with the, you know, the Motley Crues, etc. and all that kind of stuff. Start getting into these other kinds of bands. And I started wandering away from those because just they sort of couldn't cut it for the aggressiveness that I was getting from these other bands, you know, and then with Testament's Practice What You Preach came out, you know, New Order, great album. I love that album. It was so cool, but for some reason, I don't know what it was with Practice What You Preach is the one that really clicked for me. When I was getting into Testament, you know, that album just did it for some reason. I saw them like at least 4 times on that tour. You know, they played, I'm from Toronto, Canada, and they played here, I think it was 4 times on that tour, and I saw every one of them. It was great. But, you know, progressing on with this, those are the kind of bands that influenced me and really got me into, you know, deeper into metal, you know, and you know, Master of Puppets, you know, here you go. It's like, I'm sure these albums are on many people's lists who are into this genre of music, you know, but you know, that's kind of what did it for me, was really driving influence and made me want to play my instrument. I back in the day, I played drums, and these are the kind of bands that really got me wanting to play, you know, and I could never match up to the ability that was required to play a lot of that music, but you know, I still put my whole heart into it anyway. And then you stepped out of the 80s and went into the 90s, where the metal scene sort of started to die off, and this whole grunge thing came on. It's like, not for me. The grunge thing wasn't for me. I liked a couple things, but it wasn't. But then you know, beginning of the 90s, you had Metallica doing the Black Album, which, you know, is a great album, especially in retrospect now. I look back at it and you really realize how good of an album that album is. At the time, that was a real 180 for them, as far, you know, going from Justice for All to that really was a real change for me. You know, Enter Sandman kind of didn't cut it for me when it came out. It was like, okay. But the rest of the album is a lot better material than that song, even though that's kind of the one that they play all the time and the fans seem to love it. But you know, that album had to grow on me, but it did grow on me. But one of the bands that came out of the early 90s that just, you know, really set it off for me and was that change, which is something really new, was Cowboys from Hell, Pantera. You know, that groove sound and that heavy was like, there's nothing like it. I first heard it, you know, when you go to a show, they play music all the time before the bands are going to hit the stage. You know, they play it over the PA system, and I hear this music coming out, and I never heard it before. And there was a guy who was sitting with a couple of my buddies who were at the show, and, you know, we're trying to figure out who this was, and he knew. He goes, yeah, it's a new band called Pantera. You know, and I thought, well, there's a cool name, first of all. You know, it's like that. These guys are wicked, you know, and it's like, even over the PA system, it was a bit muddled and it was very loud in there. I think it was I was at an Exodus show, Exodus and Suicidal Tendencies show I was at, and you know, so I didn't really get the full spectrum of it. The next day I went out and I bought the CD, and I was just blown away. That was in heavy rotation for me for more than just like months, for years. I was listening to that, you know, just awesome album, just different, unique, one of a kind. Nobody sounds like them. You know, they definitely set a sound out with that. So that, you know, that really that groove metal heavy punch just was just great. You know, really got me into it. Through the 90s, there's a lot of other stuff that came out that I liked and all that, but you know, that kind of, a lot of stuff died off, was mediocre, repetitive stuff from bands from the success in the 80s, you know, moved into the 90s, and, you know, they just didn't cut it as much. It took into the 2000s, you know, for me to sort of get rejuvenated again, you know, for a lot of the music that I was into, you know, getting into the, you know, into especially thrash metal. I'm a thrash metal guy, you know, and then coming along, you know, in the sort of mid, you know, halfway through the 2000s, an album that came out again that really was defining for me and still is, that I love it, was Tempo of the Damned by Exodus. You know, Zetro on vocals, you know, back into the fold with the band. They put this album out, and this was, for them, was a if you want to call it groundbreaking, or a, you know, comeback, whatever they want to label it. It was a fantastic album, beginning to end again. You know, it's just one of those albums that it really got your blood pumping, you know. And I was, you know, very impressed, you know, by it. It was just one of those albums again that, you know, really stands out to me. You know, and nowadays, you know, we're in 2016 going into 2017 now. You know, a lot of time has passed, and you know, with the advent of the internet and YouTube and all of this, the material that's out there and offered to us in such high volume, you know, that there's just so much of it out there. It's like you just can't keep up with it almost now, because the medium gives this avenue for these bands and underground bands, which I really like to follow a lot, to you know, really gives them a place to put their stuff out there where they can't, because they can't get record deals or what have you. Plus, you know, stuff we don't hear from Europe and so on, and all these young and upcoming bands. And it's like, I love it. You know what I mean? It's just a great thing. And if we had this back in the day, you know, back in my earlier days, I would just, you know, my head would have exploded, you know, but, it is now, to be honest with you. I just can't keep up with it, but I just, you know, like so much stuff that's out there, you know, all these new younger thrash bands that are coming out, some of these re-thrash bands. They're not reinventing the wheel or anything, but they're definitely, you know, appealing to my sense of what I like, you know, in the genre of music. And, you know, with so many other bands that I'm getting into that I never did, like Gojira, you know, they're another band for sure that I really interested in getting to know more about, even though I heard of them and all that, but I never really listened to them. But that's a band that I'm really impressed by musically, and you know, I'm starting to listen to them more. But you know, I digress. Going back to what I was saying, my influences are definitely were you know, obviously the big four, which should be more like, you know, should be more like the big five. Testament should be in there. You know, I'm surprised, you know, it's not in there. You know what I mean? It should be alongside with Anthrax. And, you know, we know the bands. So that's what really got me into the music I'm into, and I'm still into that today. You know, I'm over 50 now, and I still listen to that kind of music. You know what I mean? A lot of people I know, friends that, you know, they're just not into that anymore. You know, you get your lives, your families, you got your things going on. For some reason, they get into this watered down crap. Now, it's got to be faster, heavier, more aggressive. For me, you know, I'm always loving the newer bands, you know, things like that. Like, you know, some of my friends, I play Lamb of God. They can't even stomach that. You know, they're just like, what the hell is that? And it's like, but they used to be into the bands of the day, but now he's like, no, I just can't listen to that anymore. And it's like, well, you know, your loss, my gain. There, you know, so much out there for us to listen to and get into, and we need to support all these underground bands too. and promote them. And, you know, we try to do it. You know, I have a couple of Facebook groups I'm in. John Cruz, you know, he's got some great Facebook groups, and he's really a great promoter of all of this type of music, you know, and he's really into the underground scene and trying to get get it out there and let these bands be known that are not so well known, you know, and try to push it out there. That's what the internet and Facebook and YouTube and all this stuff is for. You know, they need to utilize it so we can get the younger generation, you know, get into the music like we used to get into it. With this medium now, it's so easy to get it to them, and you don't get to hear it. So we need to be out there pushing it so they can be influenced like we were, you know, and just it's great to be able to, you know, back in the day it was like put a vinyl on, you know what I mean, put an album on and just drop the needle onto it and then just go, whoa, what is this? You know, it's like I remember doing that with Ride the Lightning. It was like I put that album on. It's like, well, when I heard Trapped Under Ice, it's like, oh, I was just blown away, you know. So I could give you lists and lists of albums, you know, but we don't have enough time, and I don't have enough recording memory to be able to fill it all with that. So that's my little 2 cents worth that I put in here for for John here, and hope, you know, anything I said might be, you know, of any interest to anybody. You know, great. Just always remember, support music. You know, let's listen. Let's, you know, find it, listen to it, tell your friends about it. You know, this life without music is just not living. So everybody just you know, do what you do and go for it. So I think I finished my 2 cents worth. So everybody keep metal alive. Stay heavy.
As it all comes crashing down, the earth collapses from within. As the apocalypse begins to disappear and control.
John, thanks for taking an interest in our band and also giving us this opportunity to share with everybody who's watching what the albums were that we were listening to when we were younger, influenced us the most as far as metal goes. For me, it was Agnostic Front's Cause for Alarm. You know, growing up as primarily a kid who was listening to hardcore and punk, this is definitely the first album that exposed me to metal. It had Louis Beto from Carnivore playing drums on it, and that kind of added to the crossover sound for this particular Agnostic Front album. And those blends of styles definitely is what introduced me to thrash and got me interested in listening to more metal music.
For me, I'll kind of have to go with an obvious pick of Metallica's Master of Puppets. I mean, along with like Pantera and Iron Maiden, kind of the other obvious choices, Master of Puppets is the album that first got me into metal, made me want to start playing music. I used to sit in my room and learn how to play all those songs on guitar, and that's the one that did it.
John, thanks again, man. We're Riotous Indignation. Check out our video for the end that just came out. We have a new album coming out soon. Thanks.
American dream.
Hi, my fellow brothers and sisters of metal. My name's Denise Ball. I'm a fellow Nebraskan, like John. He asked me to do a video, and I'm sorry this is late. I'm a Metalhead fanatic, as most of you are. This album got me started listening to metal. I dated a metalhead when I was stationed in Great Lakes in A school, and he introduced me to this band and to this album, and I've loved it ever since. I've loved their work ever since. So this album started it all for me. It's my influential album. And it is Kings of Metal by the fantastic group Manowar. It just starts off. It starts off kick ass. I mean, starts off from the gate. My favorite song off the album is Heart of Steel. It's just a great ballad. It's a song I want them to play at my funeral. I have a heart of steel. Metal is in my blood. It's just an awesome song. The whole album is great, start to finish. You don't have to skip a song or change it up. It flows. So I totally recommend, if you don't have this album, to go get it. All right, Metalheads, peace out. Take care. Rock on.
Hey, metal freaks. So yeah, this is Viejo Malo, current drummer for the Mentors. Actually the Spinal Tap sort of drumming situation. I'm, I believe, number 666 in line. You never know who's going to be behind this rape rock drum kit. Could be that guy right there, who knows? But anyhow, so I'm supposed to tell you about some music other than ours. I mean, all you should listen to are the Mentors because, you know, they are the most perverted, sickest rock band ever. I don't want to hear any comparisons to any other shit. Just believe me, okay? It's my word. But anyhow, I guess I should talk to you about some current metal songs I'm listening to or bands I like. I don't know, whatever. So yeah, I like this band right here is called Mastodon. Some of you might not like them. I don't give a shit. I like them, so there you go. Yeah, Mastodon. Also got some High on Fire. Dude, fucking drummers. Most of the music I like has got some sick drummers. So, I'm not one of those sick drummers. But anyhow, so yeah. High on Fire, they're the shit, man. I'm telling you, man. Fucking Matt Pike for president. Fuck yeah. Anyhow, I also got some shit that was like way before its time, in my opinion. This Gorguts. Man, you talk about some demented, twisted shit. Fucking, this drummer is insane. Crazy, crazy, crazy shit. Anyway, well, yeah, so I like this shit. Gorguts. And also, oh yeah, this guy, Pope P, this guy, he's a little pervert, yeah. And when I'm feeling in a sort of apocalyptic mood, like, you know, end of the world type shit, even metalheads should listen to fucking Godspeed You Black Emperor. I'm telling you, these guys had to influence like Wolves in the Throne Room, a lot of these current new quote unquote black metal bands that are going around. This shit is the fucking sick stuff right here, bro. Godspeed You Black Emperor. And, oh yeah, of course, Slayer. Fuck. I don't give a shit. I'm in one of those bands where it's like, oh, hey, they don't have the original drummer. Hey, they don't have, whatever. Fuck you guys, okay? Fucking, whoever wants to play this shit can play this shit. It's fucking sick. Go up, fucking Slayer, horns up. Horns up. Well, whatever. You know how that goes. And, of course, our Lord and Savior, Duce Karaoke. This shit, man. Have some beers, whiskey, some cocaine. Bring yourself an underage girl and put this shit on. I'm telling you, man. Okay, maybe not underage. You want to get freaking arrested, but you know what I mean. Somebody that's kind of like have a good time. Anyhow, so that's me, Viejo Malo, signing out. Peace, fuckers. Oh, I mean peace.
Yes, Cousin Fister, rhythm guitarist of the Righteous Band, the Mentors, coming at you at the Jack Shack to talk to you about rock and some of the greatest albums that were ever made. Obviously, these aren't all of them, but definitely the top 5. AC/DC, for those about to rock. Obviously, everything with Bon Scott was legendary, but also everything with Brian Johnson was legendary. For those about to rock, we salute you. Except no substitutes. There's only 2 singers of AC/DC, Bon Scott and Brian Johnson. Black Sabbath, Mob Rules. Obviously, as well, Ozzy, everything he did with Black Sabbath, legendary. But when Dio came along, he raised the bar. Rest in peace, Dio. Van Halen, David Lee Roth, no Van Hagar, except no substitutes, only the real deal. Eddie Van Halen, Michael Anthony, Alex Van Halen, and David Lee Roth. Yngwie Malmsteen, neoclassical shred lord. Don't get stuck on just his 2 albums, all of his albums rule. And the greatest album of all time, ever in the history of the universe. The Mentors, Up the Dose, Sicky Wife Beater, Dr. Heathen Scum, and Our Lord El Duce, Up the Dose. Everything you need to know about life, sex, booze, is right here. And everything on this album brought me to where I am today. Rockin', spreading the word of El Duce and the Mentors. Yesh, the Mentors, rock.
Why don't you?
Hello, my name is Sam, and I'm friends with John. He recently reached out to me to discuss my favorite metal albums of all time and my most influential metal albums of all time. So in order to do this, I'm gonna have to kind of go back to the start of it all. When I was growing up, nu metal was all the rage. I didn't grow up, in the 80s, with the classic heavy metal, sadly, as much as I wish I did. Anyways, I first got into metal probably around when I was in the 6th grade. I was just starting middle school. My brother just left for the military, so I inherited his room. And, all of his old stuff was there, and I went searching, seeing what else, what I could find. And I found a CD. It was like a CDR or a burned disc. It wasn't like an actual album, and it was full of songs from the band Korn. And I remember, I put it in the stereo because I was curious, and it blew my mind. I mean, that's the first time I've heard anything remotely heavy. Because before then, all I knew was what was on the radio. I'm like, should I be listening to this? I was looking over my shoulder. I'm like, I mean, he just said the word fuck. Oh my god, this is some edgy shit, man. So that's kind of how it started, and eventually, and when I went to middle school, everyone else is also into this nu metal style, and I found more bands that way, such as like Slipknot or Limp Bizkit, and anyways, however, there's one album from this period that I do need to talk about, and it's not necessarily my favorite, but is the most influential album of this time, and I probably wouldn't have the same taste if I didn't find this. So anyways, this is Deftones, Around the Fur. It's actually been several years since I've listened to this, but I still hold on to it because it's kind of a very nostalgic album, and kind of an important album to me. And that's really part of what it was, is just it was more mature and classy, I should say, than anything else I was listening up to that point. It made it really hard to go back to stuff like Korn or Slipknot, where it's all just about yelling over how much you hate your parents or whatever juvenile lyrics were. And it really helped me broaden my horizons. I remember when I got this album, I listened to it nonstop. Hell, my 8th grade year of middle school, it was just this album and some of their other albums on repeat pretty much the whole year. And eventually, I started getting into more other metal stuff. Once around either the very end of the 8th grade or starting high school, I was getting into stuff like Metallica, Slayer, Pantera, Machine Head, Chaos AD era, Sepultura. More popular stuff, but more metal, than what I was listening to prior. And eventually I also started listening to some hardcore punk as well, and that eventually led to grindcore. Which I started listening to surprisingly early on, and it really helped me, get into more extreme styles, because I I like the punkiness of it, so there was something that I could kind of latch on to, you know. And however, at the time, I didn't really like death metal. I was aware of it, and I've heard a few songs, but it wasn't exactly my forte. And I think, you know, the popular stuff like Cannibal Corpse or what else, you know, stuff like that. And it didn't really enthuse me that much. Anyways, it wasn't up until, you know, I just turned 16, like maybe a week prior. And I was at Homer's, a record store in the Omaha area. It used to be a chain at that time, and it was the one on 132nd Street. I was looking for an album to buy, a new album to buy, you know, with my allowance, and I couldn't really find anything that was interesting me. And then I found this album by Death, and I was like, you know what, fuck it. The album cover looks cool. I'll give it a shot. And I remember putting it in my stereo and just being blown away. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, how sophisticated yet brutal it was. I mean, it really was something else. You know, I haven't heard anything like it up until this point. It was really what started my love for death metal. And I remember, you know, once I got home, actually my car broke down on the way home. Kind of funny. So I got towed back. So it's a pretty memorable day for me. And I remember my parents just got me a checking account, and I was starting to save money, and I had about $100 or so. And when I got home, I'm like, you know what? Fuck college. I want more death metal. And yeah, I remember going to Google, typing in best death metal albums, and I just pulled up Amazon and just went down the list until I had no more money left. I ended up with CDs by Morbid Angel, Obituary, Atheist, Autopsy, etc. And I loved all of it, and you know, it became an addiction, and that's around the time I really started collecting too. Like I really, you know, I wanted the albums physically. Downloads just weren't doing it anymore for me. You know, the physical copies, they sounded better. I just liked holding it in my hands. I love the album covers too, which is another reason why I started collecting as well. As dumb as that may sound, but anyways, you know, but at the time I really ditched everything except for death metal. That was all I was listening to for several months on end. And until one day, you know, I'm going to talk about another one of my favorite metal albums of all time. I was at a store called CD Tray Post. They had a buy 5, get 5 free sale going on, and someone just traded in a bunch of death metal albums. So yeah, I got like 8 or 9 of those, and I still had another free CD left, and it was another case of just giving a random album a shot, because I couldn't really figure out what else I wanted, and that was My Dying Bride's Turn Loose the Swans, which is now one of my favorite albums of all time. I remember when I first put it in, you know, the violins and the piano just chimed in, and I'm like, what is this? It wasn't what I was expecting at all. It was, you know, it was in the metal section. I'm like, did someone gonna say it's like a classical album or something? And then Your River hit, and I was just like, whoa, what is this? It was slow, mournful, and sorrowful. It wasn't really like anything I've heard before, you know. And I've heard the term doom metal thrown around a few times, but this was the first time I've really listened to that genre. And yeah, I fell in love, and I fell in love with the doom metal genre, and ended up buying several albums not too long after that, and it really helped broaden my horizons. And it's still one of my favorite albums of all time, you know. Especially when I got it, I was kind of going through some really tough times, and just the very sorrowful sound. It really appealed to me at that time, and yeah, it was very nostalgic album for me. Stupid glare. Anyways, I love it to death. Yeah, I could listen to it, you know, nonstop. And the final album I'm going to discuss, which is probably my favorite metal album of all time, and that is Rotting Christ, Thy Mighty Contract. Before, you know, I got this album, I never really particularly cared for black metal. I mean, I did get a few albums off and on that I just ended up never really enjoying them, and I just couldn't. I had trouble taking the genre seriously, and this album really changed that for me. You know, it was weird too. I take my iPod on the go, and it just kind of came up on shuffle. I remember, you know, I just picked it up on a whim. I'm not even really sure why, to be honest. And yeah, I remember a song from it came up on shuffle. I'm like, whoa, what is this? You know, I'm like, I totally wasn't expecting, you know, it to sound like this at all. It was the track The Mystical Meeting, which is a bonus track, and yeah, I fell in love, and immediately, you know, I'm like, oh, Rotting Christ. So I immediately listened to the whole album. It was very dark, gloomy, mystical, occult sounding. It was like nothing I've heard up to that point, and I fell in love with it. And I love it to death. And Rotting Christ is one of my favorite bands. Seeing them live, was a real experience, and I own every album from them. And yeah, it also really helped my love for black metal, which is now one of my favorite genres, and I collect it relentlessly. Anyways, the impact that metal's had on my life, it's a huge part of my life, and I really couldn't imagine living without it. I love. It's very euphoric for me, and it's kind of like my therapy. It's like whenever I have a bad day, you throw on a death metal album. It always makes me feel better. And I love the music. Listen to it nonstop. At work and at home. And I just couldn't imagine life without it. I couldn't imagine if I was still listening to generic radio garbage. So, it's my main hobby too. Although I might spend a little too much on collecting it, but anyways, that just comes with it. Anyways, I want to thank John for reaching out for me to do this, and I really enjoyed talking about this, and I hope I didn't go on for too long. I tried to make it as brief as I could. So anyways, thanks everyone.
And I want to talk about an album that was seminal to me, and it's probably still my favorite album of all time, and that's Judas Priest Unleashed in the East. Now, that period of time, it was released in 1979, there was, a lot of great hard rock going on, and even some, like Sabbath, they pretty much defined heavy music in that period. And I was listening to a lot of the hard rock and Sabbath, of course, and a lot of U.S. hard rock, and started to get into a little bit heavier stuff, and some of the European stuff, UFO, Scorpions, but it was still hard rock. But Priest really defined metal, I think, in that period. I mean, the 4 albums, when you have Sad Wings, Sin After Sin, Stained Class, which I think is really the first modern metal album. There were no blues influences on that album at all, or progressive influences. And then you have Hellbent for Leather. Those 4 albums culminated in Unleashed in the East, and you had the great songs from those albums, and some of them weren't recorded as well, especially Sad Wings and Sin After Sin. Then you had the great sound of Unleashed in the East, and that guitar tone. I think that guitar tone is what really one of the things that got me into guitar playing. I think it's just that sound spoke to me. It was just those Marshalls, and unadulterated and just really chunky tone. It was the first time that the guitars had that edge, I think. I mean, Hellbent for Leather had the sound, and they just took it and brought it into a live setting, and it just spoke to me. And that I feel that guitar tone, and to this day it still speaks to me. And Priest went on to much greater success later, and I think they actually got kind of boring in the 80s. They brought in a drummer who wasn't nearly as good as Les Binks, who played on the Stained Class, Hellbent, and Unleashed albums. And they lost something. They lost the mystique. Of course, back then, in the 80s, you had MTV, and bands started to be able to be more accessible then, which I think was good and bad. You got to see your bands more, but some of the mystique was lost, the mystery, and Priest had a lot of mystery, and they created a lot of the heavy metal look. I mean, you can see it on the cover here with the studs and the leather and all that, and they were just so metal. I mean, the lyrics, Ripper and Sinner and Exciter, and a lot of words that end in R, by the way, but they really, in this album, I mean, it kicked off modern metal, I think, and it set a blueprint. Shortly thereafter, you had Accept, Fast as a Shark, which was one of the, besides that and Priest Exciter, one of the first speed metal type songs with the double bass all the way through, double bass drums, and it just laid a foundation, I think, a blueprint really for what was to come. Now, this album originally came out as a single album, and it always seemed like it needed to have more songs on it. Well, this version is is live in Japan. It's called Priest in the East, which actually has 4 more songs on it: Rock Forever, Delivering the Goods, Hellbent for Leather, and Starbreaker. Now, there also was, they did a few more songs on that set I wish I'd included, which were White Heat, Red Hot, and Beyond the Realms of Death. I have the Beyond the Realms of Death on a single, and it's an unbelievable version. But, you know, this album really still sticks to me to this day. You know, people talk about it as Unleashed in the studio, because Halford had to touch up some vocals, and yeah, he did. I mean, you go back and there's a couple of bootlegs on YouTube you can listen to now, and you can hear he was very sick on that show. And I don't really care, to tell you the truth, that he went back and touched things up, because what we got some of the best metal music of all time recorded really, really well. And I think that, to me, is just as important as having this pure, unadulterated live album with a lot of flaws. I mean, to me, this presents the music in the best way, and that's an argument I think people go on and on about, because people say, oh, it's got to be all live and you can't touch anything up and all that, and you know, and I agree with that. It's got to have that foundation, but you know, in the end, I just really loved hearing these songs recorded really well, and it's such an in-your-face recording, and so Judas Priest Unleashed in the East, my favorite album of all time. Thanks for listening.
Voltage, rock and roll. High voltage, rock and roll. High voltage, high voltage, high voltage, rock and roll.
My name is Demas, and I'm a big, huge hard rock and heavy metal fan since I was age 5. So I'm gonna show you a video. I'm making a video for my collection of CDs that I have, giving you a top 10 list of some of the favorites that I got, that I like. So, start off with number 10. You got Great White. Number 9, you have Cinderella. Number 8, you have Brittany Fox. Number 7, you got Dawkins. 7. Number 6, Def Leppard. Number 5, Aerosmith. Number 4, Black Sabbath. I am Iron Man. Number 3, Dio, Holy Diver. Rest in peace, Ronnie James Dio. You are a true legend of hard rock and heavy metal music. Your music will live on forever. We all of us fans miss you and love you. And we have you all in our hearts when we play your music. Rock on. Number 2, Metallica, Master of Puppets. Kick-ass thrash metal album. And the number 1 pick is AC/DC. R.I.P. to Bon Scott. He was a true legend of singer. And AC/DC Brian Johnson is great too. I like that too. But these are all the seeds that the top 10 list. So I hope all you fans out there enjoy it. I know there's more bands out there like Iron Maiden, Slayer, Anthrax, Queensryche, Whitesnake I could put on there. So maybe in the future I'll make another one. So I hope you all enjoy this. Have a great 2017 New Year, and rock on, motherfuckers.
Hi, I'm Matthew from Prisoner and Merciful Angel, and today I will talk about my favorite albums. So, let's begin. I will start my story with this one, Summertime by Iron Maiden. It's one of the first metal records that I ever heard. You know, I was really young, and my father played 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 that album to me. I had less than 10 years, you know, and the first thing that hooked me up is an artwork, which is, you know, natural thing when it comes to Maiden, because their artworks, you know, they are really, you know, infectious, you know, and they're really good, and that's the first thing that you will start with when it comes to Maiden. Uh, I was mesmerized from the first notes from this album, you know, title track, "God Summer in Time." That intro, you know, it's simply iconic. It's legendary. It's mesmerizing, and it's one of their best tracks in whole career. And they have, you know, the 16 albums, and there's also one song from this album called "Stranger in a Strange Land." When I was a kid, I hated that song with a passion. You know, I simply didn't like that groovy kind of thing. I was like, this is slow and this is boring. And you know, I hated that vocal line, the chorus. But I always liked the guitar solo. And as I grew older, I started to like the song, and now it's one of my favorite songs on that album and for Maiden in general. And that solo that Adrian Smith played, I think it's one of the most beautiful things in music ever. And my next favorite from this record is Alexander the Great, and you know, that song has, like cult status, because it's one of their most epic songs in the catalog. By they didn't play it live because I think it's because that song is too difficult to play live. You know, because those Balkan ethno rhythms in the middle part, and I think it's difficult for Bruce to sing it because it's very high for vocals, and I'm one of those people that are hoping, you know, that Maiden will play that song, you know, maybe on their farewell tour or something like that. And as a guitar player and musician, I learned that you know, you don't have to be, you know, fast to be heavy. Sometimes you can be heavy just with the groove, and this album has, you know, the really great groove, and it's also it can also be a big lesson for guitar players that you don't have to play fast to be, you know, good. The second place on my list belongs to Ride the Lightning by Metallica. When I heard that album for the first time, you know, it was a whole new level for me, and I discovered the new genre and new style, and it's really important for me because that's how I decided how I decided to play the thrash metal. You know, the best thing about this album is that it's really, you know, eclectic, and it has a variety of you know, styles, and you know, you have the fast and aggressive tracks, you know, like Trapped Under Ice and Fight Fire with Fire. You have a ballad, Fade to Black. You have the big epic, you know, instrumental piece, Call of Cthulhu, and you have, you know, mid-tempo songs like title track and Escape, which is really hated within the band, but we, the fans, we agreed that it's one of the best tracks on the album. My favorite my favorite songs from this one are Fight Fire with Fire and Creeping Death. You know, Creeping Death, it's the anthem, you know, and it's one of the the best songs in the whole Metallica catalog and the live favorite for the many of people. And I really like this album and Metallica in general because they showed to the people that you can play aggressive music, but it doesn't mean that it's the only thing you can do and you must do. It's really great when fresh metal bands are making the ballads for their album because they're not afraid to do some experiments and to make the music more interesting and their albums more listenable. And I think it's a great example for the musicians how they should work and organize their music and their albums. The next on my list would be Pleasure to Kill from Creator. It's a really interesting story how I heard that album for the first time. I was in a primary school. I had about 14 years or something like that. I don't know. And I went to the local CD shop. It's a shop when you can find mostly mainstream things, like pop music and something like that. You can find metal and rock and roll, but just mainstream bands with their most mainstream releases. And you can find obscure things like Creator, Sodom, and stuff like that. And the music in the background was always pop or rap or I don't know, something like that. And that day when I entered the shop, I heard some strange noise and some really aggressive and fast music with screaming vocals and guitar solos that are out of tonality. And I ran to the shop assistant and I asked, "Hey, what's this? I never heard something like this before." He looked at me and said, "Hey, you really don't know what's this?" I said, "I don't know. This is the first time I heard something like this." He said it's Pleasure to Kill from Creator. I just play the whole album, and I stood for the 30 minutes in shop just to hear the whole album. I don't know what I bought that day, but I was more impressed with music that I heard in shop than the music I bought that day. And I went to my friend and said, "Hey, do you have a Creator?" And he said, "I have Pleasure to Kill. This is the pirate copy and take it. I don't need it because I don't know how can anybody listen to this crap." I said, "Fuck off and thank you." And it was really a whole different level for me because it's thrash metal, but it's different approach than Metallica, And I was amazed by the artwork. I was amazed by that aggression and that kind of sound. It's really raw, and it's really imperfect because there are many moments on the album when the whole band was out of rhythm. But I didn't mind that. It was it was strong enough, to get my attention on that album.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Cruz, the wife of John Cruz, who has asked me to do a video for him. When I was growing up in a small town in Nebraska, town of 250 people back then, we listened to music all the time. My parents had a really eclectic taste in music. We listened to everything from the Beatles, which this album was one of my mom's favorites to put on a Saturday morning, and she would clean the house and we would have music playing all morning long, and she would have the doors open and you could hear it clear down the block, and they probably thought my mom was a wild woman with her crazy Beatles music or Elvis music that was playing, but this was one of the best and one of my favorites, and I know it was one of her favorites because we listened to it all the time. So lots of really cool memories there. This was the first Beatles album. Yes, my husband's helping me a little bit. I Want to Hold Your Hand, and I saw her standing there, and some of these are the songs that I remember very fondly of my childhood. Of course, these came out before I was a child, because I'm not that old. Elvis Presley, Rock and Roll Forever, again blaring from my mom's record player on Saturday mornings, and this is what got her going to clean the house and make us clean the house with her. And we all just kind of danced around and sang and enjoyed the music together. So there's Elvis, Rock and Roll Forever. Elvis, of course, the country music. We liked it all. Elvis, Elvis, Elvis. And this is John's, actually, but it has all of the good stuff on it. Heartbreak Hotel, Don't Be Cruel, Love Me Tender, Any Way You Want Me, Loving You, A Big Hunk of Love, just all kinds of good music on there. Like I said, we were well-rounded, so country music was a huge part of what we listened to. So Johnny Cash, Charlie Rich, Conway Twitty, and Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson was my dad's and is my dad's favorite singer of all time. And so we grew up just with a lot of different mix. Patsy Cline, I just remembered I did not put on this list, but she's my favorite artist of all time in the country world. I just thought she had such a great sound to her voice, and probably a little bit ahead of her time in the 60s. So she was one of my favorites. This album, you will see, has been through better times, but Invisible Moods, and had all kinds of different music on it, but Paul Anka and Skeeter Davis and Dottie West and Al Hurt, Bobby Bear, Floyd Kramer. So songs like The Lion Sleeps Tonight and I Will Follow Him and Everybody Plays the Fool, Country Sunshine, just some great songs. And if we put these records in, they'd probably skip every other, just because they were played so much when we were growing up. That's why it looks so wore out. Jerry Lee Lewis, again, just to kind of tell you across the board, my parents were kind of all over the place with the music, and that was the beginning of my love for music. And so that just continued to grow as I got older. And then, being a child of the 80s, I loved the hair metal movement and the groups. And one of my very first introductions into metal, I remember, was Quiet Riot, Mental Health. And we would play this on the way to junior high basketball games or volleyball games, and we'd all be singing as loud as we could sing on the bus, and I'm sure the bus driver truly enjoyed every minute of that. But this is where my introduction to metal came in, and you can see this is a pretty awesome picture disc. Mental Health Quiet Riot album. So AC/DC, they were and are still one of my favorite bands of all time. Hell's Bells and Back in Black. This whole album, I don't know, there's not a bad song on it, and it stands the test of time. When did this come out?
1980.
1980. So it is as good today in 2017 as it was in 1980. And I love the music on this as much now as I did then, maybe even more. And my favorite concert of all time was just last year, and we went to see AC/DC, and it was amazing. They were awesome. Okay. My husband is cringing right now because this AC/DC, you know, I was a little older when this came out and drank a little more when this one came out. And Thunderstruck is one of my favorite AC/DC songs of all time. Poison, these girls, they're beautiful. Oh, sorry, those are boys. My husband, I think, thought they were girls. That's why he bought the album.
Yep.
Yeah. But just so many amazing songs that they sang, like I Want Action and Talk Dirty to Me. And those are just a few of their amazing songs, but just really fun, you know, when you're a teenager and you have this kind of music and you go to dances or whatever. That's the kind of music that makes you want to get up and dance, and we did that a lot when I was a teenager. Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood. Again, these girls are so pretty. Just kidding. But Kickstart My Heart, Sticky Sweet, Don't Go Away Mad, Just Go Away. We used to sing that all the time because sometimes we were mean girls and we would sing that to boys. But we would sing, you know, boys, just go away. Don't go away mad, just go away. So we did that sometimes because we weren't very nice. Twisted Sister. They were awesome. You know, my parents, we listened to this music and they never said anything. Like I truly think that maybe they enjoyed it a little bit. And my parents were younger than most of the kids in my class, but they never said anything about what we listened to. It, you know, they wanted us to have a well-rounded like of music, and I think both of my brothers and I have that, you know, in our lives. So it's attributed to them and how we were raised. So that was pretty cool. My husband is cringing yet again because Guns N' Roses, one of my favorites. Welcome to the Jungle. What's the other one that I like? Oh, Paradise City. Yeah. Sweet Child of Mine. There's so many that I really like, but those are three of my favorites, and I know he's just like, but when you're from a small town and you have one country station, radio station that you can listen to, and one rock station you can listen to, and we were lucky enough to have a satellite, so we had satellite TV, and we had MTV, so we were lucky to have that in our small town. So when you hear what's popular, because that's what they play, those are the songs you tend to like. So, and the groups that you tend to like. Boston, they're amazing. You know, just I don't know, it's just the beat of the music, and it just gets you going. But Smokin' is probably my favorite Boston song. I love that song. Bon Jovi. So we love Bon Jovi. My friends and I listen to Bon Jovi all the time, and the drill team did a routine to one of the Bon Jovi songs. I remember it very well.
Are you going to do it for us?
No, I won't do it for you. But thank you for asking. I do remember it, though. I remember the moves and stuff from it. I was not in the drill team, but I remember the routine very well. It was really good. They did a nice job. But Living on a Prayer, Wanted Dead or Alive, one of my favorite shows called Deadliest Catch that's on TLC. I love that show, and their theme song is Wanted Dead or Alive. I'll Die for You, Never Say Goodbye. Oh, just reminds me of the 80s. Life was good back then. It's good now, too. Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell, Paradise by the Dashboard Lights, one of my favorite karaoke songs to sing. But don't sing it with someone who says they know it, but they don't really know it, because then you end up singing the whole thing. Paradise by the Dashboard Lights, 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad, All Revved Up with No Place to Go. You took the words right out of my mouth. So many good songs. So many good songs. Again, stands the test of time. Great music. Billy Squier. I don't know. He's amazing. His music is awesome. I love it. Love, 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 love Billy Squier. Yeah, he's awesome. I have stuff written down. I gotta turn my page. White Snake.
You skipped one.
I did. I'll come back. White Snake. Yeah, they're awesome. Still of the Night, probably my favorite White Snake song. But good stuff. Journey. We have this album from Journey, Don't Stop Believin'. Who's Crying Now? All good stuff. Open Arms. I would sing to you, but I would embarrass John, so I won't. And then Greatest Hits. All the good stuff. I could sing. I mean, I could sing every one of these, and we would have lots of fun. But
We'll do a different video where you can do that.
really, you'll let me sing to him?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, babe. Def Leppard. Pyromania. My husband was surprised that that was the one I chose. What one did you think I was going to choose?
Hysteria.
Yeah, that wasn't the one I chose. So he was a little surprised, but
Pleasantly.
this has just a lot of great songs on it that he really enjoyed when I was younger. I still enjoy them today. Ozzy Osbourne. I loved his show on MTV with his family. Cracked me up. But there's probably one song out of every one of Ozzy's albums that I really, really enjoyed. Some of his music is a little far out there for me. But Crazy Train is one of my favorite songs of all time. I would say in my top 10 songs of all time, Crazy Train's in the top 10. I truly, truly love that song. All right, Loverboy. These boys, they look like punk rock kids. See them? I'm just saying. Just good music. Really fun to listen to. Enjoyed listening to them growing up. Leonard Skinnard. Nope, sorry. ZZ Top. Just, they were awesome. They are awesome.
Eliminator's in there. It's just a box.
It's good. It's good stuff. So, yeah, they're good. Leonard Skinnard. So John has this album, which is awesome. Sweet Home I could listen to Leonard Skinner every day because I think they're awesome. This is Swamp Music, Sweet Home Alabama, Give Me 3 Steps, Freebird. Freebird. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, Motorhead. I know this is what you were waiting for. Lemmy was one person that I truly, I loved seeing him speak. I loved watching him sing. I think that his voice is probably, I don't know, one of the best that I've heard in the heavy metal. And I always recognize his voice. I really, truly enjoyed listening to him sing. And I thought anytime I'd ever seen him interviewed, I don't know, he just seemed like he had a really good head on his shoulders, really smart. I think he took care of his business well. And I don't know, I just really liked him. And Ace of Spades is probably my favorite Motorhead song. And I'm sure there are many, many, many I could choose from, but that's the one that stands out for me. So, rest in peace, Lemmy. We love you. Okay. Now, Metallica. My husband does not have a Metallica album. So, I know all of you are very disappointed with him right now, as am I. So I'm holding up this CD, and it has a ticket in the back of it. Did you go see them?
Yeah, I saw for that tour actually the first time.
In 1991. But I love Metallica, and one of my all-time favorite Metallica songs is Enter Sandman, and I can't help myself. And when I was young in the 80s, when I was in my teens and 20s, I used to headbang to Metallica. And I was a pretty damn good headbanger. My husband would have been proud, but I'm too old now, so I don't do it. It hurts my neck. Anyways, so you all need to razz him a little bit about not having an album. And
I have plenty of Metallica vinyl, just not that one.
Yeah. It's very disappointing.
I know.
Whatever.
I'll remedy it soon.
Whatever. So, the last thing I'm going to talk about, I hope you've enjoyed this so far, and I'm sorry if I rambled or went on about things that I shouldn't have or whatever. But the Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl, I truly loved Nirvana. Dave Grohl is one of my favorite people in the whole world. I love that he has such an eclectic musical background and taste in music. I think he's extremely smart. I think he's extremely entertaining. And I could listen to him play drums and sing and watch him chew gum while he sings all the time. But, you know, his reinvention of himself in music and what he does with other genres of music and how he's done music through his career, I think is amazing. And so Foo Fighters are in my top probably 5 of all time. So but that's it. That's me in a nutshell. So thanks for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it. And John, take me off your list.
Rock on. So we've come to the close of Volume 6 of Metal's Best by Metal's Best. But we have one more thing to discuss as quickly as possible. And that is the next step in my metal journey, which was my introduction into death metal. Now, the first thing I ever heard that was what you would call death metal was this album right here. And without getting into controversy, I'm not a fan of Possessed Seven Churches. I don't like the album. It just doesn't appeal to me. I'll give it to people if they want to say it's the first death metal album. I don't agree. I look at things in terms of my life and my journey into metal. For me, this was it. This was the introduction into something different from what was going on with thrash. And just to show you a couple different formats, this was with the reissue with relapse. This was the release. It was vendor only orange vinyl. I think 2,500 made. This is the original cassette that was on Combat. This is the original release on CD that was on Combat. This is the 2-disc reissue that was on Relapse that just came out recently. And then this is the limited edition 3-disc reissue. Long story short, I ordered the 2-disc, and then a friend of mine, I ordered for one for him. He said, well, don't they have a 3-disc? So I went in quick. Yes, they did. I canceled my order for the 2-disc. 3-disc came. About a month later, the 2-disc came. I never got charged for it. So on this one, I got to say, sorry. If I scam somebody, I scam somebody, but hey, I never turn down a free CD. Real quick about Death, I heard them, at first, at the time I listened to thrash, so I really thought it was just thrash, but it just had horror themes and things like that. I really didn't consider or hear the term death metal at that time, per se, but it just really, the vocals were different, the riffing was a little bit different, and then I loved horror movies, and so it just had that horror theme, so it really grabbed me. The next band that came out not too long after that, and it was kind of weird, is a band called Rigor Mortis, and it was released in 1988, and it was actually released on Capitol EMI. So their debut album was released on Capitol Records. This is one that was signed by Mike Scacia, the guitarist that passed away. That was signed in October, like 3 months before he passed away. Here's a promo copy of the vinyl. But I remember getting this on cassette. I think I got it used. It was, and I have the original Capitol CD. Not a promo either. What I remember about Rigor Mortis is just, after I heard Death, anything that had the kind of the death imagery or the horror imagery, I ate it up. And so I bought it. With Rigor Mortis, if you've never heard them, his guitar technique is so much different from anything. You hear him, you can tell. He went on to play with Ministry. And so you hear that really fast picking in the later Ministry stuff. That's Mike Scacia. And I mean, it's just clear and distinct. And that's, if you listen to Rigor Mortis, you hear that same guitar. And that's one of the things I think that really drove me to Rigor Mortis was that sound. And then I do have this. This is a single from the album Demons and Welcome to Your Funeral. 2 great songs from the album. My favorite on that album would be Wizard of Gore, which of course is from the about the movie Wizard of Gore, H.G. Lewis, and that's for another time. Horror movies are awesome, though. But then again, around the same time, band Pestilence. Now, this may have been the first time that I heard the word death metal, because you see on the sticker that came on the record, it says Warning Ultra Brutal Death Metal Enclosed. Now, this is from 1989, I believe, on Roadrunner. But this was their second release. Malleus Maleficarum was their first release. It was more basic, but I mean, it still had the same style. There's some great songs on that too, but Consuming Impulse started to add a little more technicality to it. I like the album after that, Testimony of the Ancients, or I think that's what it is, Testimony of the Ancients. That was even more technical, and then Spheres after that got really technical and almost lost me. But just really loved it. Martin Van Druren, the vocalist who went on to sing for Asphyx, he sang for Bolt Thrower, sang on Comic-Con for one album, if that's how you spell it, Comic-Con, or however you pronounce it. But here's the CD. And just there's some great songs, Dehydrated, Process of Suffocation, Suspended Animation, Out of the Body is a great song, just a really killer riff, just really kind of slow and grindy. And this is where you start hearing more of the guttural type vocals. I went to see Creator in 1990-91 for the Como Souls tour, and there were 2 bands that opened up. I believe, if I remember right, that was the show. The first one was a band called Obituary, who we may know. And at the time, I'd never heard them. I got a tour shirt afterwards just because the cover, just the front had this, and then the back says Rotting Slow and American, had the tour dates and everything. Just was cool. And it just had that. It reminded me of Death. As a matter of fact, the guy, when he sound checked the guitar before they came on and they were getting everything set up, he did a bit of pull the plug. So I just really thought it was, you know, kind of a simplistic version of Death. And there's the cassette. That was the first thing I owned. The vinyl I just got recently. And then got this is the original Road Racer CD with a little warning about drugs and everything that was on every one of those. And then this was the remasters that they put out through Roadrunner, you know, about 10 years or so ago. But the album that I think that really tops that, that was the album that got me into Obituary, but the album I think that tops that is this one right here, Cause of Death. What they did for me is they added an element that they really needed to. There's probably 2 albums in this pile that I have behind me that features this guy, James Murphy, who he had his finger on the button from the get-go. He was on Death, Spiritual Healing. He played for another band that I'll mention here, but he was on this album as well. And he may have been, I think the tour I saw was Cause of Death, but the shirt I got was for Rotting Slowly We Rot. So I am not 100% sure on that. Like I said, they were the opening act. But this is the Cause of Death, the original pressing. And then this is the remaster that they did. And of course, I've got the cassette, no vinyl. But this one has got some songs. They do a cover of Circle of the Tyrants, which is great. I have to look here. Body Bag goes into Chopped in Half. I just remember Chopped in Half going on every freaking compilation I made, because just the first thing is they're dun dun dun, just guitar and chopped it off. Just like can't even do it. Just this guttural scream. And at the time, it was just awesome. And I was all about rolling my windows down and annoying people with music. So it worked really, really great. The other band that opened up for them that time, if I'm right on this tour, I believe it was Obituary Creator and Morgoth. Incredible that I saw them, but this was another band that I think that really kind of pushed me towards that. You know, at the time it was thrash. Starting to hear this stuff, and it's like, wow, you know, Morgoth. And there were other bands prior to this, and I'll get into later, but I just kind of mentioned these, you know, just because these were the ones that I listened to a lot. I mean, I really listened to this a lot. When they put the second album out, the second full-length album out, it got a little bit more, they worked more on the technicality, and I think they lost a little bit of the feel from the original album. And yeah, dorkhead me, this is the original version I had, the cassette, not the CD. So I, thanks to this label right here, and thanks to a compilation called Grind Crusher, which I've talked about numerous times, I got into a few bands, and my favorite band probably in the early 90s for quite a while was this band right here, Morbid Angel, Altars of Madness. And I've met only a small amount of people that listen to death metal that think that they don't like this album. I have to say I am shocked when they say that. This is the first version of it I have, the cassette that I listened to like crazy. And then, of course, wouldn't be me without having the CD. This one is actually the Earache release, not the US version that came out here. This is an Earache release. And then this is the reissue from Earache that has the CD-ROM stuff on it. But I heard Chapel of Ghouls, and from there I was hooked. And I love that album. I listened to it all the time. There's a bonus song that was not on the cassette, I don't believe. Lord of All Fevers and Plagues was not on the cassette. It was only on the CD as a bonus track. I loved that song. I loved Chapel of Ghouls. I love Maze of Torment. I love Immortal Rights. I think it was Immortal Rights. Yeah. All the other songs are just great too, but there were certain songs I just listened to all the time. You know, and for those of you Morbid Angel enthusiasts, this was technically their first album, although it's more of a demo. But there are some really raw versions of some of the songs that were on Altars of Madness. There's Lord of All Fevers and Plagues is on here. Chapel of Ghouls is on here. But most of the songs on here were actually appearing on my favorite album by Morbid Angel, which was the next one, Blessed Are the Sick. And I got to tell you, where I listened to Altars of Madness a lot, I listened to Blessed Are the Sick a lot. this thing from start to finish flows. They've got little interludes, musical interludes, instrumentals, things like that to just tie everything together. Just beautifully done. That once they lost David Vincent, in my opinion, the other stuff, it just became the typical death grind stuff that was out there. It was nothing different from any other band that was out there. And at the time when they did this, I thought this was completely awesome, and it was just different from everything I was listening to. They just became a copycat of what was going on. I think when they lost David Vincent, when he came back, they really didn't recapture that. Even when they had David Vincent, the last couple albums, Covenant and Domination, they started to lose me a little bit because it just became more about, let's see how grindy we can be in parts versus being more subtle with it. And this is the remaster reissue, and then the first version of it that I had was the cassette, of course, that I listened to like crazy. But those first two Morbid Angel albums, I mean, the testament of an album is if you can still put it on today and it feels fresh and just you don't want to turn it off. You want to hear more. Or, you know, I have songs loaded on my iPod and I'll play it and it'll play and I'm like, man, I'll go in and just load the album up and just listen to the whole album. You know, that's a testament to how great the songs are. Well, so another band that was out on the Grind Crusher that just, again, grabbed me was Napalm Death. Now, obviously, they were around long before that, and their stuff prior to this album sounded very little like this album. And then, honestly, as they progressed from there, they never really recaptured the sound. Utopia Banished, the one after this, was probably as close as you're going to get to that. But for me, they added Barney, who was with Benediction for the first album from Benediction, and then he left into Napalm Death and just had that album is a perfect mix of grind and death metal. In my opinion, that's a classic. I can't really get into Scum from Enslavement either. There are songs I like, but it's really not my bag. There are later Napalm Death albums that are okay, but nothing grabs me like that album. I can listen to that again. That's an album I can listen to straight through, all the way through. Well, here's the original CD that I got. I got this one used for $7, and it includes the Mentally Murdered EP on it. And then got the reissue digipack. And then also there was a Suffer the Children EP that had Siege of Power that ended up showing up. I thought it might be actually a bonus track. No, it wasn't on here. It was on. It was a re-recording of a song from one of the earlier albums, but it was on. There was a compilation that came out shortly after that. But here's the vinyl of Suffer the Children as well. It's kind of cool. But, you know, for me, Napalm Death was, that was just killer stuff. And so the next album that I heard also on the Grind Crusher, and to this day is probably in the top 3, if not the number 1 death metal album for me of all times, is Left Hand Path. Now, there's an argument that everybody says Clandestine. Let me tell you why I don't like Clandestine as much as Left Hand Path. For starters, I do like Clandestine. Don't like it as much. One, I really like LG Petros' vocals. Point blank, I like that. I love his vocals more so than who sang on. And I'm lost on who sang on it because it's the person that's listed on the record. I've heard it isn't the singer and blah, 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 and all that other stuff. But anyway, I like this. The sound is clearer, crisper on Clandestine. It seems there's way more bass in it and all that. It just doesn't really grab me too much. But this album, my God, from the production, we don't even need to go there. I've gone through that so many times. That kind of production that all started with that band and a couple other bands I'm going to mention. I heard that song. I got Left Hand Path, and I think I heard that. I really got that after I started listening to Morbid Angel and Napalm Death, and it really stopped me from listening to those and just went on to Entombed. And there was another band on there called Carnage that had the same sound. Now, this is the original Carnage Cadaver split. There were 2 bands that were on a label called Necrosis, and so this was Carnage and Cadaver, both their albums together on one CD, and then it was reissued by Relativity Earache, and then it was reissued again with bonus tracks later on. And again, it's a killer album. Members of this band went on to form Entombed, or pardon me, Dismember. Sorry. Here's the vinyl, original vinyl. Again, another killer album, and it just got that same crunch, that same death metal crunch. And then, we can't mention death metal without talking about one of my other top three, Dismember, Like an Ever-Filling Stream. Again, the production, the sound, I ate it up. And there's so many bands, a lot of bands now doing that. Like I've said on some of the Metal Inquisitions, the bands that do that sound, that can reproduce that sound now, it's just, I don't care if it sounds repetitive. I don't care if there's no substance. If it has that sound, you got me. You hooked me in. But there's, this is the version that was on Nuclear Blast USA. And then this was a Digipack reissue. But again, the Dismember, Like Ever-Filling Stream, just continue with that first song, Override to the Overture. Is that the way? I want to make sure I said it right, didn't flip the words around. Was just incredibly killer. And a band that I'd heard, and I originally got them just because the artwork was so grotesque, was Carcass. And it got them as kind of a gag and as a joke. Well, then this one came out, Necroticism came out. And I bought it, and I thought, well, here you go. And I put it in to listen to. It was the first one I actually bought on CD. My God. They added, on this album, that was when they added Michael Amott, who went into Arch Enemy and all that. But it's just beautiful. I mean, there's they added the dual guitar solos, and I hesitate to use the word melodic, but it just was so much more powerful and so much more crisp and clear. The songs, they took what they were doing on Symphonies of Sickness and did it better and wrote better songs and everything else. They also re-released it on this series, and I had to pull the whole thing out. You can buy the digipacks individually. They got the whole albums on them like that, and they've got a DVD bonus on there. And then when you line them up on the shelves, it spells out Carcass, Pathologist's Report, or whatever it says. Carcass, not much. I mean, after that, they did Heartwork. They were on a major label. Again, a great album, but to me, their shining moment, their shining album, the album where you could hear them crisp and clear. They had all the elements of Symphonies of Sickness, and they had all the elements of Heartwork, but they were combined together. Necroticism, for me, that was it. That was the album, the heyday. Another band that I probably didn't get into their later stuff as much, but I remember playing this a lot. Bolt Thrower. Now, I like the other one too, Realm of Chaos, the first, it's not their first album, but the first one on Earache. But this one, War Master, for me, just the sound, the guitar sound, and they never really went fast. Just heavy guitar, heavy crunchy guitar, deep guttural vocals. It was just amazingly good stuff. Bolt Thrower was just freaking awesome stuff. And this is the version that was on Combat Earache. It came out, I don't know when it came out. It's probably 91 is when it was released. I think that was the release date for that. And so, I really, at that time, I'd read about a lot of the American bands. The only American band at the time, the death metal I was really getting into, other than Death and the early stuff, was, Morbid Angel. Most of the other stuff came from overseas. And so I heard about the band Cannibal Corpse. I got Eaten Back to Life and I started getting them. And I got to tell you, there are songs here and there that are okay. Excuse me. Cliff Barnes, his vocals, very, very good. He was one, I think, that really started the deep, deep guttural vocals. But for whatever reason, on this album, I believe this was the last one he was on. My favorite song's on here, and it's a god-awful title, Stripped, Raped, and Strangled. It sounds terrible. No, I'm not a serial rapist. No, I'm not a serial killer. No, it doesn't turn me on to hear about that sort of stuff. But the song is just killer. It's just cool how it's played, how it flows. And I know I'm not alone in saying that this song is killer. But then just listening to the rest of the song, it's the technique is to me, it's a little different. It's not just about grindy. It's not just about really deep guttural vocals. They're still there. But for some reason, it seems to not bother me as much on this album. But for me, this is good. Eaten Back to Life would probably be the other one I really like. The other ones, there are songs that that are hit and miss. You know, there's songs that are good for a giggle off, like Tomb of the Mutilated. The cover is great for a giggle, and I got a shirt of that at the show. But, you know, Addicted to Vaginal Skin and things like that, you know, who's not going to chuckle at stuff like that? The other band that I got into American-wise that I wanted to get into, I read about them, really intrigued, but I didn't really find it till later, was Deicide. And what I mean I didn't find it is I live in Nebraska, and to find it anywhere would be real difficult. But I finally got a hold of the CD. This is the CD on Road Racer. Mr. Glenn Benton signed it. He was kind of a douchebag, but you know, I didn't really meet him much, and I did interrupt him from trying to pick up some chicks. So yeah, I guess I'd be a kind of a douchebag to me if I'd done that to somebody done that to me. But this is the remaster from Road Racer. But that album for me is great. I mean, you could actually pick any of the first three. I would say Legion is the one of the first three that I like the least of the three. Once Upon the Cross is really great as well, but this one, start to finish, for me, this is their Rain in Blood. This is their shining moment, in my opinion. And for those of you that have never heard this was something that they put out a few years after. It might have came out after Legion, called Amon, Feasting the Beast, and it's their demos. And it's the first 6 tracks were the original studio recordings when they were called Amon. They were going to release the album as Amon, and for whatever legal reasons or whatever, they ended up changing the name to Deicide and then redoing the album. And so those are the original tracks. And so they're studio recorded and sound pretty good. And then the last tracks are the Feasting the Beast demo from Amon, which has songs from the Deicide self-titled, but it's very, very raw. It's very, very raw. I've talked about James Murphy, another band I started to get into a little bit later that some of the bands that I was hearing about, reading about. Cancer. This album is great. Hung, Drawn, and Quartered is probably one of my favorite death metal songs as well. Again, the titles are, but it's just a really great album, and I think that that added touch of James Murphy is the difference for me, because none of their other albums grab me quite as much as that. Pungent Stench, Been Caught Buttering. This one, the guitar production is a little bit weak on this one, but it's just really, 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 really great stuff. They started to get into this S&M type theme after that, and actually add a little bit of kind of, I don't want to say funk, but groove to their music. And I like some of the stuff. Club Mondo Bizarro is pretty good. There's some really cool songs on that. Then they left for a while, and they came back, and they put out a couple good albums before they disbanded. And I'm hearing that they might be getting back together, so fingers crossed. But I think Been Caught Buttering was probably their great one. For God, Your Soul, For Me, Your Flesh, their first album was really good as well. But for me, Been Caught Buttering. Another Swedish band, Grave. Their first couple albums, they had that Swedish crunch. This was around the time that all the bands were doing the death and roll stuff, when Tombed had put out, or was getting close to putting out, Wolverine Blues, and Dismember was putting out Massive Killing Capacity, and this one came out. There's a song on here called Bullets Are Mine. Love it. It's probably, again, one of my favorite death metal songs of all time, and it's tame. It just has something about it, just grabs me. But the whole song, and there's a song Soulless, I Need You. I just used the whole thing. Just another killer album. This was the first album by Hypocrisy I heard. I started reading about these bands on Nuclear Blast. Eric had not treated me bad, so I figured, I started seeing bands on Nuclear Blast I liked. Well, I'm going to check them out. This was the first one I got, Hypocrisy, The Fourth Dimension. It was my first love of theirs. I heard Penetralia, their first album, which I really liked. Tatgren didn't sing on that one. There's a lot of really good stuff, but it was more straightforward death metal. This one had a little bit more going on to it, and it had a lot of different really cool riffings. Great. There's a lot of great songs, and I just revisited this not too long ago and just remembered just how good the whole thing was as a whole. And then one of the last bands that I'm going to talk about, Altar. Now, this was their first album. This is from, I think, 94, and I'm not going to go much further up than that. I think the early death metal is where I want to stop today. But this is their first release, Youth Against Christ. And I remember seeing this in mags for years and years and years, and finally got a hold of the CD. And it's just, it's, you know, it's another one of those grindy type things. Those the bands from Holland. A lot of the bands during that time on the label Displeased were recorded in Frankie's recording kitchen, and everything that came out of that studio, it seemed like it was killer. But they had a demo, and they finally released it on CD called "And God Created Satan to Blame for His Mistakes," which I thought is kind of funny. But it's got some of the tracks from the Youth Against Christ album, and then the CD, of course. And it's a good CD, and it was really what got me into Alter. But I will tell you, I'm jumping ahead because this was a later release. This for me is their shining moment. This is their Rain in Blood. This is their Smoking Gun, In the Name of the Father. Again, one of the best death metal albums of all time, in my opinion. And this is a little promo that I got. It's got a different cover on it, and it's really cool. They do a cover of The Trooper. That's not too bad. I'm not a huge fan of death metal bands doing covers of like Maiden and stuff, but the last band I'm going to talk about is a band called Ill Disposed. Now this is the second cover. There's a cover with 4 tarot cards on it that goes for around $400. So again, the Cruise collection is accepting donations. So if you have the tarot card version of Ill Disposed for the Precious Seasons and you'd like to make that donation, go ahead and hit me up. But until then, I've got this, and this isn't exactly easy to get either. This is really rare as well. But this just really, everybody I've played this for that's into death metal, they're like, I go to take it off, like, dude, no, keep playing it. It's just heavy. It's just, it's just something about it. They started to add groove, and I really enjoy that. I hate to say that. I know that sounds cheesy. I don't like it when it gets so groovy and danceable, but just when it adds enough to it that it makes it fun, and it's not just all balls out in your face grind and all that. That to me, that gets a little bit old and boring. That doesn't necessarily speak to what's on this album, but they have some great songs. On some, they have I think the album's called Burn Me Wicked. There's a song called Shine Crazy. YouTube that song. You will not be disappointed. That is a killer song. And Bo Summer, the vocalist, killer singer, killer stuff. He did an album recently called At the Grave, I think from 2015, self-titled, and it's killer stuff. He's a singer for a band called Panzerchrist. Again, killer stuff. So great death metal, but that is the stuff, and there's stuff that fell through the cracks, and there's little bands here and there that I like, but these are the bands that really defined what I was listening to consistently. You know, of course I listened to bands like Mortician and Defleshed and Deeds of Flesh and Brutality and Monstrosity and Malevolent Creation and, you know, all those different bands, and Brujeria. Yeah, I could just sit here and name bands forever that are in my collection. But these bands that I just listed to you in less than 30 minutes, I might add, were the bands that I played nonstop. And they were the bands that I would show people when I was trying to get people to listen to death metal and they didn't know what death metal was like or what it sounded like. These are the bands I played them, and these are the albums I played them. So we're done. We're going to close up shop for tonight, and just wanted to put it out to you guys. I'm going to continue to do these videos. I know it's been a while. I kind of want to take a step back a little bit so that I'm not being pushy and forcing people to make videos and making people feel like, you know, I'm on their case to get the video to them. Do it at your leisure. Do it when you're ready. It's not hard. You turn your camera around, you videotape yourself talking. There's been a few people that haven't. They've talked over filming the records, or, you know, there's a couple videos on here where the people didn't actually talk. And so if that's what you got to do to send a video, then do that. You know, it's not an intimidating thing. Once you get started talking about music, it's easy just to get carried away and just get caught up in the moment, and you forget the camera's going. So I really encourage you guys to do that. It doesn't take a long time. I'm not looking for a half-hour video. I'm not looking for you to pick out 15, 20 albums. Pick one. Pick 5. Pick 10. I don't care how many you pick. I don't care how short or how long it is. It could be 30 seconds. It could be 30 minutes. Send me a video. I will eventually get it on one of these series. I promise. No matter what, it will make it on one of these series. Okay? So anyway, until next time, stay metal.